So let's go to electricity. Okay? How many of you leave every light in the house on, even if you're not in that room? See, we got some people who don't do that. That's good. Okay. You need to start conserving electrical energy also. And that's really easy to do by simply the switches. Okay? Now, my computer stays on until I go to bed. That's because I run a business on my computer. But when I turn it off at night, I turn it off at a switch. Not just that, I turn it off. Because you lose a lot of energy with ghost light. And my energy bill, I've got to do something about. But then I run a freezer and 2 refrigerators on. We're getting ready to take out the water heater and put in one of these little mini ones from RV place that they have inside the RVs. Okay? I would love to be able to afford an on-demand water heater, but at the cost that they are, I simply can't justify that cost right now. I would love to do it. If you can, that's fine. Okay, soil. Now, most of you, it's almost too late to start a garden because of the fact that we're not having any cold weather. So, spring gardens, you may be able to get some things in, tomatoes, peppers, things like that. Lettuce. But any of your winter crops, forget it. Because if it stays hot, they're just not gonna make. But let's say, okay, I'm not ready to completely start this, but I gotta have soil. Okay, you can go out and buy good soil. But it gets expensive if you really realize how much you're gonna need. So start composting. It does not have to smell. Trust me, it doesn't have to smell. If you put things that you know that are going to rot, throw them on the bottom. I enclosed the thing on composting there so that you can start composting. And you can compost almost anything that is a waste product, with the exception of metals and things like that. Any paper, but you don't want any paper that's dyed. For example, your things that you print out and you don't want, shred them up. Put them in your compost pile. Don't throw them in the garbage.
Well,
envelopes.
Can you put like magazine pages, or because it's glossy, you can't?
You don't want those dyed in your colors.
And what they make it glossy with is also
not good.
A problem.
But you're working on a paper and you printed it out. You don't like it. Okay, of course, what I do is, my sign-in sheet, for example, was, if you looked on the other side, it was something that came through my computer, and I use it for notes.
I use both sides of mine.
Yeah. So whenever I can't use that anymore, it goes into the compost bin. The brown manila envelopes, a lot of junk mail comes in. It can go in there. But make sure you take the little metal piece off. I gave you a 2-page list, 2 columns all the way down, of things that you can use. For example, when you're sweeping up your floor, or you're emptying out your vacuum cleaner, that can go in there too. If you have pets, their hair can go in there. Your hair can go in there. Of course, I don't put my hair, when I shave my head, into my compost bin because I use it around the floor of my bed to keep the animals out.
I'd like to say a kind of extreme warning about at least a couple things that are on that list. And keep in mind, this is generated from Australia, but it mentions blood meal, which for a long, long time has been used in gardening and organic gardening. But in the United States, as well as England, mad cow disease is or the cow population, and we've only heard in the news of 1 or 2 instances, but there's been so much that the American dairy industry, the American beef industry, and the USDA has done to hide the fact that it is much more widespread. And the high rise of Alzheimer's in the United States, a lot of it is actually mad cow disease, Americans have. Anyway, blood meal is mainly from cows, and if you buy it in the United States, you risk having the prion that causes the mad cow disease get into your system. Now, it's not going to get into your food if you use it in the garden, but when you handle it, it can get into your body. And there was an instance of a gardener who was a lifelong vegetarian in England who died of mad cow disease because she gardened with blood meal. Just minuscule little cuts, things you might even be aware of, cuticle, little thing back, if you make contact with that, and that prion is in there. So I don't recommend using any blood meal generated in the United States anymore. Also, Jell-O has a lot of petrochemicals as well as cow products in it. So those are two
And
things,
sugar.
but those are two things I just would not recommend putting in the ground or actually having physical contact with.
Of course, a lot of the information I got offline, and it was from Australia. So
But,
things are a little different.
right, just apply for the
Does
US
anybody
side.
have some questions?
So, all right. So say like I want to make this little compost thing going on some. So I need
Okay.
some worms and I need something like
Okay, it's called vermiculture.
vermiculture.
Composting. You can look it up online, and it tells you how to make the bins and how to use the worms. Where to get them?
The extension service has a composting class too. just
Yeah,
like the
that's
regular
another
class.
one. So there's a class where you could get the water barrels, and then there's another class through the extension service
Right.
for the composting.
They give
too.
you a composter
Right.
thing you can use compost for, with.
Cool. So check out your county's extension service and the
I will
workshops
send
they
you
offer.
links if I don't know where the little sign-up sheet comes
It's on the
Straight
table.
there.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. If you're interested in a particular thing that I've talked about, write it down by your name so I know what kind of links to send you.
Do you have any recommendations or resources for collecting the dew? I mean, you know how like sometimes in the morning, especially in the winter, there's so much humidity at dawn.
I can answer that.
Okay.
You can find this in a lot of survival. For me, in that one book, but in survival things too, is if you usually like dig a pit, or not even that, and just scrape like an A-frame tarp over a piece of land,
Stick.
dirt, whatever, and then that it'll collect on that and then run down, and you just need to
Put something under it to catch
figure out something, to help you out. So if you do
big
that,
bowls.
I've noticed this winter, maybe because it's also been so unusually warm, the few times that I'm up at that hour, how much moisture is just on everything.
Well, this is why, I say you don't need to have an irrigation system, especially in Florida with humidity. I mean, when we get fogs, that's moisture that's going onto the plant. I've seen people, when it's raining, have their irrigation systems on. They're on a timer.
A good perspective on dew and fog and their relationship to growing things is that in the Pacific Northwest area, from Northern California up, it actually doesn't rain a lot. It really doesn't.
It's the fog.
But it's the fog, and it's supporting redwoods. All right.
Well, of course, they don't get the heat that we get here, but,
One thing I've noticed too, being in Zephyr Hills with lots of trees, and my lot is surrounded by trees, is I'll be driving home in the morning from work and there's no rain. I pull my car in the drive, and because there's fog, the high trees will actually make it almost like a rain in my yard. And it's really trippy because I'll go out into the street and there's nothing, and then go into my driveway and I'm being
which
rained
is
on.
why you should have
So-
as many trees as you can get on
Yeah.
the lot.
Yeah.
Which is why I have to use raised beds, is because I have so many trees, I can't dig through the roots.
The other thing, I don't know if you touched on it or not, Mary, but for people that have raised houses, like I've got built in 1926, so these houses are all built up and all the plumbing and all that stuff are underneath it, is that you can redirect your water, like out of your bathtub
if you're conscious about, and I wanted to know, can you just use borax for washing clothes? You don't need any other detergent?
Well,
What else is?
no, you,
Unless you buy some of these that are environmentally friendly. Actually, one of the things that we're going
you
to
do,
be
you do
seeing,
need some soap.
that we're going to be doing is you can have an area where you want to divert your gray water to, and you plant certain plants in there which cleans all that out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm taking a big one of these pond liner thingies that you make your little pond, stick holes in it, so that it will eventually kind of go out to my trees. Because you really don't want to use your gray water on things like lettuce or anything like that.
Delicate.
You need to think in terms of this is something that's good to water your big shrubs, your things like if you're planting blueberry bushes so that you have fruit, or any of your fruit trees. And by planting these plants inside your little area where you're diverting your water to, and then letting it flow out, because these plants will clean that water.
I was going to say, as you can read, like mine is above, so especially when you get drought so many years ago, and I still have not done this, but you can go underneath your house and redirect, put a Y in there that has a stop too, and during whatever is that you can redirect your bath water, redirect your washing machine water and your sink water, all to where that comes into like a holding tank where you can put. When I say holding tank, I mean like even above ground, it comes into a pool, and you can have it set where you have plants in there. And then whenever it reaches a certain level, then it can have an overflow that goes into like another type of thing, cistern, and then you've got that. It's already clean water that you can utilize on that. So that's can also be done.
This is one of the things that when we go out to the collective that they've done is they have figured out ways to do these things without great expense. Because a lot of these projects do cost money. And we're hoping that when we come back, that we can actually tell you how to set these up, how to utilize them. And this is why we're going out there, is because this is one of the few places that we've read about that actually does things on the cheap, and it works. Windmills, okay, you want to put a windmill to generate electricity in your yard, you're looking at a couple $1,000 normally. They do theirs for $30. So
Bicycle parts.
Bicycle parts. You can generate electricity with bicycles. Did you know that? Now you have to be willing to sit there and pedal for quite a while, but let's face it, you don't have to go to the gym. And you can use the battery that you're charging to run your laptop computer, run your TV, run fans, whatever.
Can that be done for AC and DC current?
Well,
We've got to figure out exactly how that works, because I don't really know.
that what you end up with discharged batteries, and then you've got a diverter.
Yeah.
You use a diverter to power
Bring it back.
AC.
But if you wanted DC current, it would be
Just there.
So these are things that we're hoping to get the information so we can bring it back to you guys. Do we have any other questions?
Any particular type of chickens that are...
It all depends on what you like. I have two Americanas who do the colored eggs, blue eggs, and I have two Plymouth Rock.
All female?
Oh, yeah, I can't have a rooster in the city. Okay, they can't get me on the chickens. Now, I cannot have a flock of 50 on my lawn. There's no way. And I can't free range them on mine. But I can use something kind of like a chicken tractor. We'll actually mount a big cages, and I move them around physically around the yard.
God, they free range them in Zephyr Hills.
Well, that's what
You gotta when you're driving down the road, you're like trying to avoid them.
That's what I'm thinking, if I just trap them.
The problem is when they free range, they want to get out.
Uh-huh.
Mine were free range that somebody gave me, So I had to put a top on my pen so they would fly out.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got hawks where I am, so obviously.
You need to have, and trust me, they will try to get them even with the wire there.
Wow.
And one of them got his foot caught in the wire on top of the chicken pen, and I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, I hope you can get caught, because I don't want to get up there and try to get you loose.
Yeah, get shredded.
Get shredded.
Those chickens, I have like 15 azalea bushes in my yard, and they love hanging out on
Ducks
trees.
being hardier than chicks and
Yeah.
provide eggs and so forth.
But you do need a place where they can get in the water.
Right.
A small pond where they can. And I'll tell you, a lot of people do like ducks better, but if you're free ranging them and letting them go around the yard, be willing to get your shoes real dirty, because they poop everywhere.
Will hawks try and take mature ducks, or just babies? Are they a little too big?
They're probably too big.
They're probably too
I
heavy.
had hawks. When I had my chickens, I had baddies and large chickens. And the hawks would go after the baddies. They would not really go
After the big ones. And I will say this, if you're looking at chickens, try to find some what they call heirloom chickens, because it's nice to keep those breeds going. If mine hadn't been free, I would have gone out and bought heirlooms, but my poor girls were free to me, so anything free is better. Get it for free if you can. And don't be ashamed if you see something that's, on the side of the road and it's useful, get it.
I'll also tell you something about chickens. You'll have hens, all right? You might have to consult somebody who has fertile eggs, because their nature, they will want to raise some. And all of a sudden, they'll be sitting on infertile eggs.
Right.
Will argue with you about getting off of them, and they will probably have disputes with the rest of the flock about that nest.
Okay.
And the only thing you can do then is give them some fertile eggs to
hatch.
hatch, and
Then pass them on.
Pass on.
Pass on the chickens, the new babies. I had to do that for one of my girls. She decided she was going to sit, and she picked the best nest. Or at least it was the nest that everybody else wanted. And she got in there, and I could hear them squawking out there, fussing, because she was after them. In fact, some of them actually lost weight. After the chicks hatched, she would guard the food so that her chicks could get the food.
Wow.
I mean, it didn't matter how much I had out there.
Awesome.
And 2 of my hens actually lost weight.
Now, what do you feed them?
I feed them scratch grains and laying mash. I wish I could do all natural, but I can't.
Plus, they love rice.
Oh, they love anything you bring them from leftover rice. That's their all-time favorite. Spaghetti. They love spaghetti because it looks like worms, and they run around with that piece of spaghetti. Oh yeah. They are delightful to watch. This is something else. People don't know how to entertain themselves anymore. Go sit out in your backyard and watch the squirrels. Watch the birds. You can be entertained endlessly. Maybe I'm becoming senile that I'm so easy to entertain now. Got a cat? Okay. What's your cat? What's your dog? You don't have to sit in front of a TV to be entertained. Use your mind.
What is the size of the pen? I know you have.
My pen is probably about as long as this wall, and probably out to about here. Square.
8 by 8?
Something like
10 by 10 or
10 by 10.
12.
I think it's about 10 by 10.
8 by 8, 6 by 8.
It's a square.
It's a square. And
But one of the things also about feeding them, when she had the bed that got taken over by the aphids, then she had to give it up. That all went to chickens.
oh, they love that.
There they had meat and vegetables.
Meat.
if you've got a big enough yard or big enough garden and you do have an infestation, you can let your chickens or your ducks or whatever in. Sometimes they'll, and supervise them, 'cause they'll take care of everything, but they'll really help clear out a whole lot of pests.
Yeah, actually, it's nice if you can free range them, but you do have to have a certain amount of property. And in a city, they don't really like you to free range.
But if
Because some of
you
your
do have
neighbors
some
get a little-
room, there's what they call the chicken trap.
Yeah, you can
Well,
build
I
a chicken
have room,
coop.
but like I said, I got hogs too. I
But
know.
Well, you have a little
but it's a
chicken tractor.
cage.
It's a cage.
You can move it.
And you can move it, it's on wheels, and you move it all over, and you can take them wherever you want them. That's what I do with small cages.
Also, use small, what they call bitty wire, 1 inch, instead of the bigger 2-inch.
Yes, because you have other predators who like chickens, especially eggs. So it's called chicken wire.
It's not going to keep out of mouse.
It's the bitty, what they call bitty
It'll
wire.
keep out bigger rats.
Now, I have seen them, a chicken will kill a rat.
Yeah.
If they can get them. I had one that got caught in the wire, and they pecked him to death.
Wow.
Oh, how
But you-
sad.
But you get, it was a rat.
Natural process.
Natural
I know,
process.
Hakuna Matata and all
Okay,
that.
snakes will get into your pen if you've got the big wire because they go after the eggs. There's
Snakes
something,
will get in there.
and they do occasionally.
I wanted to mention Permaculture Activists. It's a quarterly, I think. It's an American publication. There's some